Hi everyone, this is Erin from Sandpaper Road, and today we are going to make two 12 by 12 scrapbook pages, 6 cards, and 5 8 by 8 size scrapbook pages all in one sitting. We're going to choose our paper once, we're going to cut a few times, and in just a few hours you're going to have all these projects done. And it's really neat because you'll have a lot of variety just using one set of papers. And here's how you do it. You start with what I call the Sandpaper Road formula, which is 2 papers of the same, 2 different plain. That means they're relatively plain and different from each other. And 2 papers that are, I guess, off the chain is what I call them. They're either a crazy busy pattern or a pattern that you look at and you think, I do not know what in the world I would do with it. I have no idea, but I know I want to use it. 2 of the same, 2 different plain, 2 off the chain. Then you add to that 2 lights and 2 darks. And then you also add to that 6, at least 6, 8.5 by 11 sturdy white cardstock for card making. Now, why in the world would you want to make basketball cards, basketball themed cards, if you're a scrapbooker? Well, you could use them for thank you cards, birthday cards. If you're making enough pages for a player, you probably have players' friends, parents, coaches, etc. Same goes for Imagine baby pages, Christmas pages. I also thought we'd make some good use of shape scissors that you may have. I have this one that cuts. This is by Stampin' Up and cuts in a jagged edge. This one has a pattern, a little pattern you could see. And this one has a scallop. And you may have these laying around and not really know what you want to do with them. Same with punches of different shapes. Or you may even have something a little more detailed. I have these number punches, which I think will go perfect with a sports theme page. But this, I just want to stress that in this pattern, you may just be mindful that when you're cutting, you're going to have some paper that is the scallop edge, but then you're also going to have some, shift your eyes and look at it the other way, that looks like waves. You see what I mean? So if you don't want that kind of pattern, then maybe choose one that it really doesn't make a difference which side of the pattern you've got. You're also going to want some sort of circle shape for this pattern. Maybe you have a die or a die set. Maybe you have a circle cutter. I love this by Creative Memories from years ago. I don't know if I'm not sure if they make it anymore, and they might. And or even if you have like a template, you could probably use that. This is just like a acetate template, but a circle template or a circle die or a circle cutter is going to be really useful in this particular pattern. You're going to find it really helpful if you take just a minute and just write quickly on the back of your papers what you're calling your papers. Off the chain 1, off the chain 2, different plain 1, different plain 2, and so on. With the exception of the 2 sames, although you could label them, but it's going to be pretty obvious. This way you can keep all the papers actually face down and just work off of the pattern. Now, for complete instructions to the pattern, you can go to the link in the description box, which will link you to sandpaperroad.com, and you can have this free sample of craft outfitting. To get started, the first step is we are going to cut an 8 by 8 square out of each of the following papers. 1 neutral light, 1 neutral dark, 1 different plain, and both of the off the chains. So now, once you've chosen your papers, you can just simply cut anywhere straight down, and I'll show you with this paper. That you don't have to measure all crazy, just a simple 8 by 8. Now, you may, when you cut this piece, want to label off the chain what was this called? Off the chain 1 as a cut, and then turn it and cut it again at 8. And then label this piece off the chain 1 as well. And so you'll end up with a big one and a little scrap and an 8x8 square. And you can do that with all the rest of the ones in that little mini stack. When you finish cutting, you'll have your 8x8 squares cut perfectly from those papers, and you'll have short and long pieces of scraps. They should all match and they should all be labeled. And I really like to do my cutting and my working when I'm working with a pattern on the back instead of looking at the pattern, because then I resist the temptation to just work with the pattern instead. We're gonna put this aside for now, and everything's labeled so we don't have to worry about it getting all jumbled up. And the next thing we're gonna do is find 3 of the pieces of white, 8.5 by 11, and we are going to score and cut them into 6 A2 size top folding cards, which means that we're just gonna cut them lengthwise at the 4 1/4 mark first. And then if you have a score pal or a score board or something, that's fine. I always just use my paper cutter and I score them at the 5 1/2 mark and then fold right like that. And I have a top folding card. Really nice. So I'm going to do that with 3 8.5 by 11 pieces of white and yield 6 cards. When you finish, you'll have 6 blank cards that fold at the top, and you can just set those off to the side and then locate back these strips that we cut earlier. Well, they're the scraps, not that we cut earlier. And you just want to find, there's the long ones and the short ones. The long ones are 4 by 12 and the short ones are 4 by 8, and these are in inches. So just the different plain one of the 4 by 12. And then all of the short ones except this different plain one of the short ones, put that one off to the side. And what we're going to do is cut from this long one, we're going to cut 2 pieces that measure 4 inches, which it already measures 4 inches on the short end, at 5 1/4. So we're just going to go 5 1/4 here and 5 1/4 here. And then we're going to label the leftover scrap. It should be 1 1/2 inches. And we're just going to, and different plain one if we want to, and put that off to the side. Now for these other pieces, these are short, we're going to cut 5, they're 4 inches on the short ends, and we're going to cut them at the 5 1/4 mark here. Again, I leave them face down because that pattern will just mess me up if I just keep watching the pattern. Okay, now this is off the chain 2. Off the chain 2. I'm always going to label my scraps if I have to, just because. What we have when we're done are 6 panels that we've cut that just go on our 6 cards perfectly. Each one of them will fit. Now I will say that in this particular one, we chose white, and white on white, it looks okay. There is certainly nothing wrong with the white on white. It's interesting. But if that just looks a little weird to you, especially later, this would be a great time if you have an embossing folder and run this one. Even though it's not really technically part of the pattern, I can't know what colors you're going to choose for your light and your dark. So if something looks a little bit plain or just too boring, use this time. You have freedom within it. Run this one through an embossing folder. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. I adhered all of the panels to the cards, and now I have really nice looking cards so far. This one I wanted to show you, I did go run through the embossing folder just so it looks a little bit nicer, and adhered that to the front as well. So our cards are at a point where we're going to set them aside, and next we have, I found this is my different plain 2, the one I have left, and I did some of this off camera already. I'm going to mark a few marks on the back just from one edge, but I do want to be mindful of which edge I want to use. So I'm going to mark it at 3 1/4. Just with a pencil. Now, if you're working with double-sided paper, you may want to score it instead of drawing a pencil line. And after you draw the line, then we're going to cut with our shape scissors. So now that I drew the line on the paper, and just a reminder, this is a 3 1/4 inch from one side, and I double check to make sure that that's the side that I want on my scrapbook page. And then it's going to be much easier. I'm right-handed, so it's going to be much easier for me to turn the paper around and put the pattern of the scissor right on this side of the line. And you just cut that. Now, what I learned about using a pattern scissors, or if you've never used them before, is don't try to go clear up and use them like regular scissors. Start back a little ways and line up your pattern, and just continue where that pattern scissor left off. See? Now I'm going to move the scissors and find that same part of the scissors again, and just keep it going. Otherwise you'll have these little lips like that. And don't rush. Heaven's sakes. And there we have it. Locate your 12 by 12 dark cardstock, and then once you put adhesive on this strip, you can just adhere it right to the scrapbook page. And afterwards, now your paper may or may not fit. You see this right here? See how that just little tiny drives scrapbookers nuts that it didn't go all the way down to the edge. But that's fine. Don't worry about that, because we're going to trim this paper. I always trim my pages to 11 3/4 by 11 3/4 by trimming two sides, a quarter of it, well, just at 11 3/4. So we'll start with this side, and then we'll trim this side as well. Make sure that you're not just cutting off a 1/4 inch. Actually measure your page to 11 3/4 by 11 3/4. You'll be surprised that the strips that come off may not be the same size, but you know that when you're done you'll have a complete square page. And here you're cutting through both. See, look, see how this one's a little bit bigger? We didn't have a true 12 by 12 page anyway, but now we have a true square page, and that looks really nice. There's a little dusty right there. Okay, we can put this to the side and continue our pattern. This is what we have left of our different plane that we just cut with the shape scissors. So flip it back over and measure out 7 1/2 inches from the shaped strip this way, and the same way we did, just putting the beginning of the ruler right at the tip of the shape and measuring out about 7 1/2 inches. You'll end up with approximately 1 1/4 inch left over here, maybe about 1 1/2 inches over here. And if you just label that, remember this is still 12 inches this way, then it will be easier later on. And we're just going to cut this way. I'm going to turn it so that I can follow the line the same way on this side of the line this time. And I am going to cut the same way that I did before. When you're finished cutting, you'll have this small strip left over, which is about 1 1/4 inch, and it's shaped on one side, and you can put that off to the side. This one has 2 shapes, and so we're going to turn this and measure at 5 1/2 this way. And from that line that we just drew, we're going to do another 5 1/2. Because I have this little lip of room here, I'm going to cut into it this way. And the same goes here. This is probably going to be the trickiest part, is edging off this side with the shape scissors. But just line up the edge to the edge of the paper. Once you've got your pieces cut, you don't really have to label them at this point, but what you've got is a photo mat that you've cut that perfectly fits a 5x7 team photo for your page, and it's cut with the same edge. You've got 2 of them, because remember, we're making 2 12x12 pages. Make sure that at this stage you're not adhering this piece down to the scrapbook page yet. Just put it off to the side. At this point, you're going to be working with either your punches or your circle cutter, or if you have a Cricut or an electric cutting machine, you could use that as well. Just make sure to set the shape size at either 1 3/4 inches if your machine has that setting, or 2 inches. This punch I really like, but the biggest that it goes is 1 1/2 inches. So I just have to be mindful I may have some extra pieces to store. This kind of shape cutter might be too small at this point, but save it handy for some embellishments later. I went ahead and cut that strip off of the side of each of these 2 sames. And for each of these, we are going to measure and cut 3 1/2 inches and just cut a strip off of each one. Then we're going to cut our circles from each of those strips. Your remaining piece will be 8 1/2 by 12 approximately. A few things I want to mention at this point is once you cut out your shapes, whatever shape you chose or you punched them out, what you'll need to do is set aside 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and set them aside with the cards that you made already. Also, leave these intact. I actually ended up with a total of 11 2-inch cutter shapes, but I messed up on one of the shapes, so I had to throw it out. But that's okay, because I gave you some room for margin. Also, you can throw away these scraps, but if you want to make interesting projects with them, I'm going to link in the description box to another video called Die Cut Scrap Hacks, and it will show you lots of interesting ways to make use of these if you like to stretch your supplies. Also, you're going to end up with these, remember these 8 1/2 by 12, oh, you probably can't see that, 8 1/2 by 12 leftovers from the sames, the 2 sames. But I did want to mention that when you go to cut the circles, most of you are going to watch this video ahead of time, and for best results, I'm just going to show you on a different pattern. For best results, when you're choosing your sames, I mean, I chose this basketball pattern for my two sames. And you can see it's a neat little textured paper, and it actually feels pretty neat too. But for best results, I find that with this pattern, if you choose two sames that have, are these two sames? Yeah, that have like a different border. See, then what you could do is do your 3.5 inch cut here and cut your circles out of the border. And then when we put it together, it'll be a little bit different. I wonder if there's any other kind in this pack. Yeah, this too. If this is your, if these are your two sames, if these are your two sames, then this part, this 3.5 inch one could be your circles or your shape cuts. You cut the here and then do your shapes from it. Same here too. It's just up to you. Oh, this would be pretty, wouldn't it? To cut your 3.5 inch line here and then do shapes out of here. Okay, that's really what it's meant for. I didn't have any basketball paper that did that, so I just have it all, literally all the same, and very, very plain. But that's okay. Just wanted to mention that. We have these two pieces, and they're each 8.5 by 12 inches. And we're going to put one of them off to the side and work with it in a little bit. But the other one, we're going to actually measure. Now it's 8.5 this way, 12 this way. We want to make an 8.5 by 8.5 square. So I've pre-measured to just make this go a little bit faster. And we're going to cut at the 8.5 inch mark. So I cut an 8.5 inch square from one of the sames, and then I'm going to locate this again. And what will happen, now we're not going to stick anything else down at this point, but what I am going to do is lift this up just a little bit and see how I can, see how that's open right there, just a little bit. Well, what I'm going to do is just be able to slide that right in there, and I'm going to work with how I'm going to place this. Okay, now that looks pretty good. I'm mindful of the way this border looks on the outside. Let me move this. I'm mindful of the way this border looks, and I'm mindful of the way this border looks. I also locate my 4 or however many shapes you have left over and do the same thing. Just lift them up and slide them. Now again, maybe you could see now that if we had a different pattern from this, like an edge pattern, this would stand out much differently at this point. But that's okay. Again, we're not adhering right now. Now that looks a little weird, but remember that on this page, this is going to go right here. And then we have room for a team photo. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be a team photo, but there are so many people who have, you know, kids in sports, or maybe it's a school page, school album, youth album. I mean, great for graduation to do the school year's album. And it's nice to have a few patterns where you can work with 5 by 7 size photos. And you could still see these circles, but you could also see where a pattern would make a huge difference. Here's where it gets awesome. Remember these scraps that we had off to the side from when we cut out the panels for our cards? Well, find your dark one, and what will happen, again, we're not gluing anything down yet, except for this one is the only thing that's stuck. But check this out. If we put this right here, we have room for a wallet, photo, or if you have the photo that is a little bit too big, you can trim that down to fit. Now, we're not going to adhere any of this yet, but we are going to keep all these together just like this and move on to the next step. Find your light colored 12 by 12 paper that we haven't done anything with yet, and we are going to trim this to an 11 3/4 square, just like we did on the other one, but we're going to do it first instead of sticking stuff to it first. So again, measure at the 11 3/4 mark, and be really careful that you don't cut crooked. Now that is a nice strip. So I'm going to that's one I'm going to want to save. I turn it 1/4 turn, and I'm going to do the same thing again to the other side, 11 3/4. And let's see. This first one came out just a little bit more to my liking. I'm going to discard the second one. I've got a nice 11 3/4 square that I'm going to work with. But this strip, watch what I'm going to do. Remember, we were almost done with this. This strip is going to go about right here on this page, like that. As a matter of fact, if we did like this, then we could put the picture a little bit over it. Okay, I don't know if I like that quite as much as putting it all the way out here, because then remember, we're going to have this here for our wallet. It is up to you. When you are happy with this arrangement, now remember, we haven't stuck anything down yet. The great thing about having phones now, if you have been scrapbooking for a while, you know, back in the day when you took it off of your page, you had to just remember where it was. But now if you want to snap a picture of it before you lay it down, that'd be awesome. And we're going to adhere things in the order that they're there. So pull everything off, and then what you'll do is do all the adhering, this first, then the circles. And then when I mount my photo mounts, I am actually going to use some Fun Foam, which is smooth on one side, but it's got a sticky adhesive back. And it's really, for lack of a better word, it's pretty fun. Just to raise up this and this a little bit off of the page. This page is almost finished, and I've got almost everything adhered down. But I did want to show you that what I decided to do is go back with a sanding block. I have this one, or some sandpaper, or even an emery board, like a nail file would work just fine. And I did go around, because sometimes the paper you're using, you'd be surprised it has a white core. And if you just sand lightly around the edge, I mean lightly, I don't have a scrap piece, but if you just take it and just, you know, just lightly, just like that, you'll reveal that white core on the inside. And then I thought that looks much better. It was not really bothering me, but I just wanted it to stand out just a little bit. So that's just a trick if you did not choose a paper that had a separate border edge pattern, which is fine. Then that's a trick that you could do to help it stand out against the paper. I also did it around the edge of the frame, and this is what it looks like when it's mounted up with that Fun Foam. Now, even though it's smooth on the one side, you could just add whatever adhesive you like to use on the other. This, though, is our mount for our wallet size photo, and it's one thing if you're going to put your pictures down right now, but if you're not, what you may want to do is have one corner of the foam cut off. You could see I put adhesive on it already, but I cut this off because now I can fit this. Let's see where it is. This was what I was trying to do, is I can fit it like this if I want. And still, I always take, like, if you're going to a crop or something, just take some regular sized pictures. It doesn't have to be the ones that you're actually going to use. But then what happens is then when you get home, you don't have to worry about carrying all your embellishments with you. You could just slide in your pictures like that. See? Whatever 5x7 picture you want, whatever wallet size you want, or crop down the picture. This is the picture I would use, and see, even if I just put it right on top of there like that, that would still look good, and I don't have to crop it. And I've got a little mount right there. Aw, isn't that nice? Then when you get home, you can add a title, you can add journaling, you can have, if you've got basketball paper, you've got little basketball stickers and little hoops and things that say shoot, score, whatever. That's your time to add that. But no sense in carrying all that with you all the time. So we have one 12x12 page of the pattern considered finished as of right now. By now you've probably got scraps everywhere, so thank goodness we have them labeled. And this is the one that we're looking for next. This is the scrap of the different plain one that's about 1.5 inches. Okay. And what we're going to do is cut 2 squares from this small strip, each 1.5 squares. So if we know it's this way, all we need to do is do 1.5 and 1.5. And you can use a punch if you want. I find this to be a bit easier. And we're going to toss this leftover piece. Now, each one of these we're going to cut into triangles. Like so. You could use your paper trimmer if you want. I find that frustrating to try to line that up. So that's just me. And just set them nearby. We're going to use them pretty quick here. Next, we've got this leftover same. And it's 8.5 by 12 approximately. And so we're going to cut this. We're going to make another 8.5 by 8.5 square, just like we did on that first one. And I suppose we could have cut that earlier when we were cutting 8.5 squares, but oh well. This piece, we're going to find our light colored. It's now 11 3/4 by 11 3/4. We're going to mount this right in the center. And yes, we can go ahead and adhere this. Now we just want to be mindful. We can just eyeball it, but we do want to be mindful of the outside edge borders, left, right, top, and bottom. And when we seem satisfied, you can go like that. Next, we're gonna put this just off to the side, but nearby, and find one of our 8.5 by 11 white pieces. And we're gonna cut it vertically at 8 inches. And we're going to save that half strip. Now we're going to turn and cut this at 6. Now, right here, this piece that we cut at 6, this other piece that we have fits perfectly right there like that. And we have now mounted a photo mat. So let's go ahead and do that. Adhere this to this before we forget which piece is which piece. We're going to adhere these 4 corners. These are kind of small for tape runner. I just had an issue, so I'm just going to use my glue stick. This is an Elmer's Extreme glue stick. I really like it. And I'm just going to adhere them right corner to corner. Just like so. We're going to set this photo mat aside. It looks pretty neat though, doesn't it? And before we go any further, I was thinking that if I want any kind of a border around here, I should probably do it now, because once I start sticking stuff, it's really hard to do a border after the fact. So if you have like a stamp and roll around thing, or if you have neat stickers or anything like that that you were going to add as a border, now would be the time to do that. I'm actually just going to doodle a border for now. I did go ahead and doodle a border around the outside, and I'm just going to lay this page to the side for now, just temporarily. And this is under here I had ready the next step, so I wouldn't have to search too far. What you're going to get is one of these, you've got a bunch of these little pieces here left over. And so you want to get one of your off the chains, and we're going to use it as a tag. Now I have 2 of them here, and I thought, yeah, because I think I'm gonna go, this one, just the paper I chose was a little sturdier. This one is a little flimsier, but I like this better for this page. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it and then just make sure that I mount it with a piece of fun foam on the back, and it'll hold better. So we'll have these other things nearby for the next step, but this off the chain piece, we're gonna use it as a tag, and we're gonna snip 2 corners off the side to make a tag. Now, if you have a tag maker, that's great. If you don't, if you just hold it like so, where you've got one of the corners, this is just a random piece, okay? A piece of anything. And put it where it's just random like this here, okay? You can adjust as needed. Now when you flip it over, look, you can adjust. Look, you've got a way you can cut, almost like a guideline here. So what you're looking at is this piece, and you can cut the corners off. Now again, you may have a tag maker, which does this a little bit easier. If you don't, now see what I'm doing? Using just this as a guide, and I am going to save these corners. Okay, but now when I get rid of this other piece and turn it over, now I've got a tag shape. All right, that's just a little trick. And we are going to use this, like I said, as a tag. Save these corners. These are awfully close to the color of my craft mat, so I'm going to leave them flipped the other way or I'm going to lose them. I have a piece of fun foam ready, and I'm going to stick it just, ooh, I thought it was ready. It looks like I'm going to have to trim this off just a bit. There we go. Okay, I did have a piece of fun foam ready, and now this tag will lay nice and dimensionally off here. So now we're going to put this to the side, and we're going to gather our remaining 2 3/4 by 4 pieces. So one of them should be the other off the chain, and the other the light solid color cardstock. We've got, you want this 1/4 inch strip of white, the different plain that has a shape strip cut out of it, and it's probably about 7.5 by 1.5, around there measured. And then let's see what we also want. We want the other, so if this is the off the chain 2 that we have left in these, then we want the opposite off the chain 4 inch by 12 piece. Okay, so I chose the off the chain 1. And we'll have these 2 corners nearby. You're also going to need the 4 inch by 8.5 inch of the same that you have left over. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut, starting with the off the chain, we're going to cut it into 2 3/4 by 4 rectangles, making the first cut a long strip at the 2 3/4 mark. So let's go 2 3/4, and let's go long. Off the chain 1, and now we can turn this and do 4, 4, and 4, and most likely we'll end up with another 4. Yes, we do. Okay. And now this one, same thing. We're going to go to 2 3/4. There's the 3, 2 3/4 here. And then do 4 and 4. We'll save this little scrap. Now these should all be the same size, which they are. And I predict they match these. Yes, they do. So they match the other off the chain in this light. Okay, good. We'll put those there. So you've got your tag, and this is the different plain, 2 with the part of it cut with the shape scissors, and this is that little scrap of same. Okay, and we're going to embellish this here. Now you might have one short edge that's straight and you might not, but regardless, we're going to adhere this little strip right against the edge of the textured part. Can you see that? All right. And then let's see here, because this is going to go right here. Then we're going to take the shape scissors. Let's do this way. And just because we're using them. And we're going to cut real close to the edge here. We'll throw this out. And then we can put this right onto here. It should line up pretty well. Whoops. Like so. And then with straight scissors, turn over the tag and cut off the excess. Whoops. Like that. I didn't do a very good job right there. Okay, we've got a great little tag. It looks wonderful. Now you can punch a brad up here, or if you have an eyelet or something like that, that would be great. And oh my gosh, I didn't even realize, look how the basketball just went like that. That looks pretty neat. So let's put the tag to the side. The tag will actually get adhered to the scrapbook page right here. As just like that. That is going to look super. Now I am seeing this little detail right here just in the tag. This is just a preference here. See how I did that? I want that to go to the clear edge. That looks much better. Oh, that looks good. All right, that looks good. Now I do plan to put a little eyelet there, so I'm going to hold off before I adhere this down. Let's go back to our cards. We have the 6 cards like this, and we have the circles, and then we have these panels that we cut in these 2 corners, which I don't know if we're going to need them right this second. And we also have this little strip. I don't know if we're going to need that right this second either, but we'll have it handy. Okay. What we will do is each one of these panels will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's set aside this light panel for now. But each one of these panels is going to go on the bottom half, and I think it would be wonderful if I did this. So I would like that to go there. Ooh, or should I do that? Oh, that would look neat. Okay, we're gonna lay those panels just however you choose down on top of the cards. Just lay. This is not adhering yet. Make sure you like it and that you like how the combination is going to look. Now, before we adhere anything, what we'll do is take our shape scissors again, and I wonder if I'll use this one. No, I'll just use this one. And let me show you on this one. You're going to snip off the top, or one long end, but just the length of, we're not going to draw a line unless you absolutely think you're going to cut crooked. I'm just going to follow the guide of the scissors. Like, I'm just going to do it just like that, and that's it. As a matter of fact, I'll do it real close so you can see. Nothing special, just that close. Just a strip off the end. It won't matter if it's crooked at all. And then when I put these down, when I adhere them, I'm actually going to adhere them back together, but just a little bit apart. You might find that a glue stick works well for this top part. Just like so. And we're going to do that on all of the cards, snipping off one long strip and adhering them back down. Now we've got all 6 cards done and adhered, and with the circles, then you can adhere them, one to each card, or if it's another shape, that's fine. And where you put them is up to you. The idea is to be able to put them in the upper half of the card. Remember that they are meant to fold out, up and down, but of course there's nothing stopping you from turning it this way. It just might just look a little unique, I guess, but it's certainly up to you. And this one I want just a little bit lower, maybe only because of this shape right here. I don't know, maybe I don't. And this one maybe right there. The cards certainly aren't finished at this point. We'll take another time later to finish them. We will have 2 pieces remaining of 8.5 by 11 white. We can stamp, we got these out on purpose. We can stamp sentiments or images. We can cut out die cut shapes, stamped images, whatever we want. These are for using to finish up the cards. We could, if we have stickers, we could mount the stickers onto these white pieces and cut them out. But this is what I like to call just a card start. So now you can put these to the side. You could even store these as they are, and then when an occasion comes up, like, oh, it's Coach's birthday, or oh, it's a team party, or whatever, you could then customize the cards to be thank you cards, birthday cards, congratulations, graduation, whatever. So you could either store them as is or finish them right now on the spot with these 2 remaining pieces of white 8.5 by 11. And so with that being said, we're going to put these off to the side and consider the cards with these 2 pieces. We'll either come back to them later in the video or just consider them done. Back to our scrapbook page. I did find the cutest little star brad, so I did put the star brad on top of the tag. Now the tag could just be used as decoration, or if we wanted to write a little something, or put like a little picture, or you know, if there's like a ticket stub of something that you wanted to put on top, that's up to you. And remember that we had this, which could go either way. It could go this way. And don't pay too much attention. Like this has writing on it. Well, remember there's a picture that's going to be over top. So don't get too overly concerned. I'm actually thinking I'm going to put it this way because I think this would look good for like a senior picture, or if, you know, there was a clipping from a newspaper. I think this would look really good like this, vertical and vertical, with the tag going this way. So, and this did have a piece of fun foam on it, and so does this. And so once we get this down, then this scrapbook page is also considered finished as of this point. Doesn't that look nice? And again, you could put that to the side, or you could go ahead and finish it now. You could add a title right here, or going down the side, or going down this side. There's plenty of room for journaling on the page, but at least now you've got a really nice, good page, pretty much 3/4 of the way done, almost all the way done. Now we're going to move into making the 8x8 album pages, and you'll need the different plane 1 that's already cut to an 8x8 square. You'll need the different plane 2, it's a small strip, and 3 sides are cut with shape scissors already. The off the chain 1, which is about, I'd say about 1.5 inches or so by 12. It's real long and skinny. You'll need this piece of the light color cardstock, and if you measured it out, it's about 8 by 5. And the 4 by 12 piece of dark cardstock. So we are going to first take this light, or 5 by 8, and we're going to cut it lengthwise at 4.5 inches. Lengthwise. Then turn and cut it again at the 6.5 inch mark. Okay, and what you've done is created a photo mat. I just want to go ahead and label this photo. We've got a lot of random pieces laying around, and I want to make sure that stays labeled. And then we're going to take, this is the off the chain, this long piece, and cut it at 6 inches. Let me turn it around so we don't get confused. Now, we've got, let's get these shape scissors again. These pieces that, does it say off the chain one? Yeah. Let's move these aside for just now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move them off camera. And with these, I think now would be a good time to use my scallop scissors. I've been kind of wanting to use them. And I'm going to trim around 3 sides of this. And just using the width of the scissor. Okay, now these little scraps here we're going to toss. I was happy to use that scallop. Now, we've got this piece and this piece, and a photo mat and our paper. And we can go like this, and we can go like this. And it's neat. It just creates, oh no, wait a second. Let's put the, there we go. The edge on the outside, not on the inside. There we go. There. It just gives a neat little edge. Not everything has to have a full frame. Okay? There we go. We're going to find the dark cardstock now, and we're actually going to cut just a piece off this short end. We're going to measure it at 2.5 and just slice right there. Now we can find, this would be a great spot for this punch. Remember I said earlier it was probably a little bit too small to use for our other cuts, or if you still had this and you wanted to use the smaller one, this would be great. We're just going to cut all out from this little piece. Remember, these scrapbook pages are pretty small, so we can cut out, and certainly you don't have to keep the same. If you have other shapes you want to use, that's fine too. So I punched out all of the shapes that I wanted. I had some circles, and then I had these number shapes, which I thought would be perfect for the basketball theme, to do my son's numbers and when they were younger, and just to decorate. So now we've got a lot of little interest, you know, and we can go like this and lay them down, just however you want on the page. And you've got plenty. Throw away all the leftover scraps from this little piece that you cut. And after you adhere this down, your first page is considered done. Next, we're gonna continue and make 2 pages at once. So you'll need your off the chain 2 and your off the chain 1 that are already cut to 8-inch square pieces. You'll need that same dark piece that you cut the strip off of and used with the shapes. You'll need your off the chain 1, your same, which measures about 3.5 by 8 3/4. And what is this? The white or the light colored cardstock. And this would be the longest piece of light cardstock that's 4 inches across, that's long. And your 2 random small skinny strips of white that are cut or light. This one's going to move pretty quickly. You'll see they start to go quicker and quicker as you get to the end. We're actually going to turn these over and treat them as 1 page, okay, at this point. Here's the white, and then here's the same. And we're going to adhere this right like this to the left, to the extreme left, leaving about a 1/4 inch border on the outside. Okay, and just eyeballing that, just being mindful of how it looks, these 3 sides. And now we're going to lay it down and just eyeball it here. This is actually how it's going to look on the pages, but what we're going to do is slice it right in the middle here. And there's all kinds of ways we could do that. Some people adhere it to the pages and then turn them over and try to slice it or cut it with an X-Acto knife. I've made those measurements for you already. And so we're going to just put in your paper trimmer, if you can cut this piece in between, it's like somewhere in between the 5 3/4 mark and the 6 inch mark. 5 3/4 is, let's see, 5 3/4 would be about right there, and 6 inches would be about right there. So we're going to go just about right there, just short of 6 inches. If we go like this, then we can just simply go like that, okay? It's going to be much easier than trying to do all that other stuff. And let's adhere this down. As you are adhering, have your papers lined up on the table in front of you so that you can really get these lined up correctly. After that, let's get this off the chain scrap piece, and we're going to cut it at 4 inches here. But I want this to be part of the 4 inches. So if there's something, take a look at your design and make sure that if there's something you want, make sure that you include it. Now we're going to trim one long end with the shape scissors. This end has a little perforation, just a little bit of an edge that I would sand off anyway, so I think I'm going to use that. And I'm going to use the scallop again, I think. Just as wide as the scissor itself, like so. We'll toss this scrap. And we are going to adhere it right here to the left. Now, if it came out a little bit crooked, more crooked than you would have liked, you can just simply tuck it under there and nobody will ever know. Next, let's find these small strips of white. And these make great strips for photo captions, small journaling, thoughts, and it's going to go great on these pages. Go for an odd number. It pleases the eye when you are scrapbooking or card making. So I'm going to recommend to either go 3 or 5. with those, and you can toss any scraps from that and adhere them to the bottom. Next, we're going to take this dark piece again and cut right off the short end, another slice at 2.5, just like we did last time. That seems to be a good amount to die cut, to punch out some shapes, or I really liked the way these number punches looked on my last page, and just cut out of just this little short piece whatever shape punches you want for accents on this page. We've only got a few pieces left, so we've got our 8x8 dark, our 8x8 light. Let's put the dark on the left and the light on the right, and we are going to take the remaining piece of dark that we've been trimming from, and let's cut a 4x4. It's already 4 inches on this side, so let's cut it at 4 right here. Okay, and let's do this so we can see better. Then we're going to cut, we've got this different plane left. Let's cut 2 4x4 squares. It should go right in half. We're pretty close to it. Here's a 4x4, and let's see how close we got. Oh, look at that, perfect. Then we've got 4x4 squares of off the chain. Let's just go right, and we should have 1. We're going to cut 3 of these, 2. And 3. And we don't need to cut. That's perfect. Now, dark on the left, light on the right. Let's take, oh, and we've got this one that, this is the same, this light colored one is the same size as this dark one, right? So let's take the dark square up here. We're going to take one of the different planes here, another different plane here, and off the chain, since it looks like a locker, let's put it like a locker would actually go. Okay. Like that. Okay. And now we're going to mount him right here and him right here. That's your basic. Oops, I don't like that. Right there. That's your basic. Okay. For your double page spread. These you can choose to mount up a little bit and make them a little bit more dimensional with some fun foam if you want. So go ahead and adhere those down. You probably have a few pieces left. You probably have a same, and you probably have the 2 corners left that we snipped. You may also have, depending on if you threw them out or did not, a small piece of white, and you may still have a different plain 1 1/4 piece left. It all depends. And we are going to trim from the same more shape pieces. So this is how I adhered all the paper. I did mount these up with some foam and adhered the other corners underneath. I did that after the fact just with a glue stick, and I put the other one right here. And then just some shapes for accents here, and these are just perfect for some photos, team photos, or just little, you know, candid photos, or, you know, you could certainly have, you know, one be a photo and another be journaling here. You could have tickets or, you know, stubs, memorabilia from the season, or from whatever your theme album is about. And here's how some of the other ones are. They're midstream, okay? So your picture could go across like this. Small pictures. I had a scrap, so I used made a little tag out of it and just adhere some shapes. I'll journal here. Okay. Here's how the other page ended up. That first page of the album with just some and then the number, you know, so that you don't have to point or, you know, write the obvious. We still have 2 sheets left over for stamping or for accents if we need them. 2 sheets of white. I like having sheets of white left over because it's never a loss. You know those will get used and you never feel like you're hoarding white cardstock. We have our card starts, and this is how we'll finish them by using the white or other scraps of things, sentiments, as we said earlier. We have a nice 12 by 12 page with room for a photo, 5 by 7, and a tag, an accent tag for journaling or memorabilia. And we have our page right here, which is started, that will finish up with, you know, a photo here, an individual photo, and the team shot right here for the basketball page. And it was pretty easy to do. Here is a final look at the finished products of everything we made in one sitting with one craft outfitting pattern. Remember, this is just a sample of what the other patterns are like, but essentially you'll choose paper, sit down, and in one sitting, virtually in just an hour or 2 or a few hours, depending on how detailed you want to be, you'll make a few scrapbook pages and a few cards all in one sitting with using a lot of supplies you already have. So I just wanted to give you a final look at how I finished off all of the cards. And there will be more details in the description box and even more details at sandpaperroad.com on my blog, where you can find close-up photos and detailed descriptions of where to purchase products, links to products. A lot of these were things I really already had and just wanted to make good use of. But as you can see, this is the same exact pattern. I just added some embellishments, stamps and embellishments. And some of these could be graduation or birthday or Final Four congratulations or whatever kind of cards. Good for coach or player. And let's move on to this one so that we can get this out of the way maybe. Look at this. Isn't that sweet? This was a really good start for my son's album, and he's still young enough where I don't feel like I'll be rushing, you know, right before graduation time, you know, to do this whole big album. This one, I love the way this turned out. I had so many pictures, and I remember having a little bit of a disappointment with the way the same came out on the circles, but it didn't matter. I just actually used that to put a picture in, and to I sort of actually brought that out using a couple of pictures, and this fits so nicely. His single shot fits so nicely on top of there. By the way, I just added some paint, some white acrylic paint with a palette knife, and again, all these details will be on my blog with more specific details and product links and things like that. So check it out at sandpaperroad.com. I added journaling here, just a little bit. Of course, my son will probably correct me in a few things, and that's okay if he does that as well. And then finally, oh, oops, I forgot I had another one. Oh no, this goes this way, like this, because we had it like this. And the beauty, I really like the way this turned out. The beauty about 8 by 8 album pages, making them that way, is that even if you're not into 8 by 8 scrapbooking, or if you're not into mini album scrapbooking, you can always use this same exact pattern, still make the 8 by 8 page, and then just take like any 12 by 12 paper and just mount this right in the middle. And it just, you could still use it just as is. It's nice. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is a sample pattern of craft outfitting. Again, check out more details, close-up photos, details, links, and a downloadable pattern where you can print out the instructions step by step at sandpaperroad.com. Click in the description box and you'll find the link there. And check out Sandpaper Road on Instagram. If you are interested in purchasing patterns for craft outfitting, visit sandpaperroad.com and click on the shop button. Or on Facebook, you can click shop now, or you can visit my Etsy shop, which is Sandpaper Road. And don't forget to check out our boards on Pinterest for more inspiration. And thanks so much for watching. I know it was long, but I hope you enjoyed the inspiration. And there's lots more craft outfitting to come. I can't wait to offer you more. So make sure to like this video if you liked it. Click on that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring the bell to get notifications. And thanks so much for watching. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.